Emma, a 15-year-old girl, ostracized and bullied by her peers, discovered magic in the world of Harry Potter through the shifting technique. But is it worth sacrificing her brother's life to open the portal to her dream reality? In this episode of True Reddit Stories, we follow a family plunged into crisis as unwavering belief drives this young girl to the brink of danger and witness their poignant journey of struggle and rebirth after the tragedy. From crushing loneliness and the dark turning point of underwater breath-holding rituals to the Astrid Network, the architect of those deadly shifting sessions every moment will keep you riveted. This isn't just a remarkable story, it's a valuable lesson about the fine line between faith illusion and our responsibility to protect fragile minds. Chapter 1: Almost Drowning Under the Portal. I will never forget that feeling, the scream that tore through the night, the chill of the water closing in around me, and the instant I lunged forward as a primal reflex. That day Jake was only 10, his eyes wide with shock, as Emma dragged him into the bathtub, filled to the brim. At first I thought she was playing one of her usual pranks. Then Emma clamped her hand over Jake's head, forcing him below the surface, and whispered, "The portal only opens when you surrender." I froze for a heartbeat, unable to grasp what she meant before seeing Jake's lips flail desperately, his pleading gaze growing faint. I didn't pause to think. A surge of strength unlike anything I'd felt before coursed through me. I seized Emma's wrists, held her down, then abruptly released her. Water exploded everywhere as Jake broke the surface, gasping and coughing, his lips already tinged blue. Emma let out a keening cry, her eyes unfocused as she stared into empty space. 30 seconds left. Can you feel the transition? Yet? Mom burst into the bathroom, her hand trembling when she saw Jake slumped in the tub, hair plastered to his head like a child just waking from a nightmare. She scooped him up, murmuring soothing words to steady his ragged heartbeat. I stood paralyzed, everything still locked in that suspended moment, Emma's dazed expression, her lips set, as if she'd returned from another realm, convinced she had touched a glimpse of magic. At last, the wail of the ambulance siren shattered the oppressive silence. As the EMTs sped Jake away, I glanced back at the empty tub and wondered what kind of madness had driven my sister to this. This was no childish game. It was a warning that somewhere beneath the surface of reality lies a world where imagination turns into a snare, and Emma believed only by trading a life, even her brother's, could she open the door to where she truly belonged. Chapter 2: Loneliness in the Darkness. I still remember the day Emma came home with a bruise around her eye, a swollen black orb right on her cheekbone. When I met her at the gate, I froze. Her uniform was smeared and dirty, her hair tangled as if she'd just escaped a nightmare. She said nothing, silently walked back to her room and slammed the door. That evening at dinner, Mom tried to coax her to the table, but Emma bowed her head and whispered, "I'm not hungry." She slipped into the kitchen, grabbed a piece of bread from the fridge, then slipped into the bathroom and shut the door. I heard her swallow it in hurried bites, and then soft sobbing through the wood. It wasn't just a piece of bread, it was all the fragile pride she was desperately trying to hold on to. Day by day, the dinner table grew quieter. While Mom and I exchanged anxious glances, Emma vanished behind the bathroom door. Under the dim light, she clutched her beloved Harry Potter pillow face, buried in it, as tears stained the Gryffindor crest. "Why won't they leave me alone?" she whispered, as if begging. I sat on a low stool outside the door, gently knocking. "Emma, your sister's here." She didn't answer, only wept harder. That was the first time I realized she wasn't pushing the world away, the world had already cast her aside. Her classmates wouldn't let her sit with them. The other girls whispered behind her back, calling her a freak and a weirdo, until she was too afraid to meet anyone's gaze. From that day on, I vowed not to let her be alone. Every lunch, I secretly carried her meal to the bathroom, sitting just outside while she ate. I told her about my day at school, the new people I'd met, even as she stared at me in silence. Gradually, her tears slowed and a small smile flickered across her bruised cheek. On the weekend, determined to give her a break from the sour noise of it all, Mom took her to the park and bought her a notebook. She flipped through the blank pages, scribbled in haste, then erased each line. That notebook became her outlet where she poured out her feelings and transcribed quotes about Hogwarts. For the first time, I saw her focus her eyes, losing some of their haunted look. One afternoon, she asked me, "Do you believe in a place no one's ever been?" I smiled and replied, "Oh, I do. You just have to open your heart and dare to believe in a miracle." She stared at me, then nodded slowly. But that miracle remained only a longing. Emma needed somewhere she could be understood, a place where she didn't have to hide her fears or her differences. In the days that followed, she quietly searched on her phone, her eyes lighting up as she scrolled TikTok. I didn't know what she was looking for, only that she was hunting for hope. And that magical world with wands and ancient stone walls seemed the only comfort she had when the real world became too cruel. Chapter 3. The First Shifting Solace in a Magical World. One evening while I was tidying Emma's room, I noticed her phone light up. On the screen was a TikTok video titled, "How to Shift Your Consciousness to Your Desired World." Curious, I tapped play. The girl in the video spoke about shifting using hypnotic sounds, rejecting your physical body to send your consciousness into another reality of your choosing. The next day, Emma excitedly told me, "Sis, I just tried listening to that recording. I feel strangely light." I found her sitting cross-legged on the floor, eyes closed, her face serene, a stark contrast to the exhaustion and fear I'd seen so often. When the video ended, she opened her eyes and smiled. I imagined myself standing before the Hogwarts gates cloak, billowing birds chirping all around. I was a bit taken aback, but relieved to see her joy. Mom was thrilled too. The following day, she brought Emma a bag of colorful crystals and a strand of tiny LED lights to decorate her shifting corner. Emma arranged the crystals around her bed, switched on the lights, and lay down as if preparing for a ritual. On her desk, the patchwork Harry Potter journal had grown impressively thick. Every night she'd lie facing the wall, headphones on, listening to the looped phrase, "You are here. The sky is full of stars. Welcome to where you belong." I often sat at the door quietly watching. Gradually her facial muscles relaxed and a trembling smile lifted the corners of her mouth. It wasn't just me who noticed the change. The child psychologist Mom took her to said that Emma's immersion in fantasy was a positive sign. A fantasy coping mechanism, she explained, helping her temporarily forget her pain. Mom breathed a sigh of relief and proudly told me that Emma was sleeping more soundly, waking less often through the night. Honestly, I didn't believe it was completely harmless. But watching her stop harming herself, no longer scratching her skin raw, I decided to go along with it. One evening, she dragged me into her room, voice trembling. "Close your eyes and feel it with me." I vaguely sensed myself floating in the cosmos, a soft blue glow swirling around my head before dissipating. When I opened my eyes, she whispered, "See, magic starts with belief." She began journaling every night, adventures with Harry, Ron, and Hermione, even battles against Voldemort. Each page was illustrated with simple sketches, yet contained the whole world she had discovered. Mom quietly showed some of these pages to the psychologist, who beamed in approval and encouragement. She's building a safe world in her mind. Before long, I found myself drawn in too. When she described the grand feast in the Hogwarts Great Hall, my heart warmed unexpectedly. An outsider might label her overly fanciful, but to me that was where Emma found refuge when the real world refused to accept her. And from that seemingly harmless shifting, a spark of hope ignited. She found in magic the true friendship and unconditional acceptance she longed for. In the darkest nights, that imaginary world became her guiding light, reminding her she could still smile. so I stayed silent and stood by her side, at least until that magic faded away. Chapter 4. Sinking Deeper into Delusion. When a hobby becomes an obsession. I began to notice the warning signs when Emma stopped simply listening to her shifting video each night. She spent entire weekends locked in her room, the door bolted shut. Sometimes I caught the LED lights flickering oddly through the crack. When Mom checked on her, she only mumbled and turned away. One drizzly afternoon, I watched her through the window. She was hunched over her laptop, typing furiously, her face flushed. When I knocked on the glass, she spun around, her accent suddenly crisp and British. "You don't understand my frequency." I froze. This wasn't my sister's voice. Soon after, she plastered her walls with strange symbols, circles, triangles, swooping lines like occult sigils. Beneath them, scribbled in shaky handwriting, was the phrase, "Portal Activation Zone." Mom panicked. I tried to pull her away, but she just sneered, "You're trying to interrupt my hypnosis." Our money vanished. Mom discovered dozens of purchases, crystals, and exotic herbs to amplify gateway energy from obscure online shops. Emma insisted it was an investment in her soul's future. My heart ached as Mom trembled, recounting credit card bills in the thousands. Worse, she began recruiting others. She called our cousin, promising him a first-hand experience. He was baffled, then firmly refused. But Emma harassed him every night, guiding him through rapid breathing drills she claimed were meditative. Mom overheard one evening and forbade him to participate, but Emma only laughed. They lacked the vibration. The whole town buzzed when parents came knocking on our door, complaining that their kids had become irritable, sleepless, even collapsing while attempting pranayama in their bathtubs. Emma taught extreme methods, going without sleep for 48 hours, rapid-fire breathing to detach the spirit from the body, submerging in ice water to activate vibrations. I watched her stand at the center of her room, arms raised, chest heaving, eyes clenched shut as she muttered meaningless mantras. In the days that followed, she refused solid food, declaring that the body only shackles the spirit. Mom wept when she saw Emma surviving on nothing but water mixed with charged crystals. I tried to reach her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Emma, come back to me." She stiffened, her gaze unearthly. "You're keeping me trapped in a hell I don't belong to." Those words felt like a blade to my heart. The final straw came when her voice shifted yet again, now a formal, archaic English, as if Emma from the other world were speaking, and she proclaimed, "This world caters only to the low vibrational. I've come so very close." I stood silent, watching her converse with some invisible presence. Chapter 5. The Crime's Climax. Nearly sacrificing Jake to open the portal. None of us in my family could have predicted the horror that night. We sat in stunned silence after a tense dinner when Emma suddenly dragged Jake into the bathroom. From the stairs, I heard his faint screams. In what felt like seconds, I raced down the hall. The bathroom door was locked tight. I heard water splashing rhythmically, then that sickening sound, Jake's muffled groans beneath the surface. I threw the door open and saw Emma pressing his head under the water, her small hands stronger than they looked. Mom followed close behind, fumbling to grab Emma's arms. I lunged forward, wrenching Jake free in one swift motion, then scooped him into my arms and ran him out. Steam swirled around us, and I tasted chlorine on my lips as Jake bobbed to the surface, his eyes wide with shock and relief. 30 seconds more. "The portal will activate," Emma screamed, her gaze fixed on the murky water. She truly believed that fear and near death would unlock a gateway to paradise. Mom's voice broke as she whispered, "Emma, what have you done?" She collapsed against her youngest daughter, tears streaming down her face. I held Jake close, feeling his chest heave with every ragged breath. "I'm so sorry, Jake," I murmured over and over before I finally dialed 911. His labored breathing felt like the room itself was being pulled into an abyss. When police and EMTs arrived, our family stood outside, ghost-like in the hallway. In the hospital corridor, Jake lay trembling on a stretcher, lips paling. I clung to him, terrified I might lose the warmth of his body. Mom sank to the floor, burying her face in my shoulder as she sobbed uncontrollably. Emma, handcuffed, spoke in a drowsy monotone, as if waking from a dream. "Don't stop. Let me finish." The officers seized Emma's phone and scrolled through hundreds of messages and posts about shifting. Their eyes widened at her breathwork instructions, her fasting tips, and her ice bath techniques, all meant to release energy. But Emma only repeated, "If you don't sacrifice, if you don't surrender, you can't pass through the portal." I carried Jake into the pediatric ward, steam still clinging to his wet hair. He whimpered softly, "I was scared. I didn't want to die." And I kissed his damp forehead and vowed to protect him with everything I had. Mom hurried in, her voice trembling as she asked the doctor, "Is he going to be okay?" The doctor nodded relief, flooding Mom's face as she wept with gratitude. I knelt beside them, placing my hand on Mom's back, silently promising, "We have to save Emma." Back at the police station, detectives pored over Emma's case. A 15-year-old girl with empty eyes was asked, "Why did you do it?" She tilted her head, voice cold and distant. "Everything I did was out of faith." "You don't understand. You lack the vibration." In that moment, I felt the chasm between two worlds, love and delusion. Emma had isolated herself so completely that she believed my brother's life was just a means to open the portal. When I stepped out into the night air, the darkness felt colder than ever. A chill wind whispered through the cracks, reminding me how thin the line between reality and fantasy had become. Inside Jake's hospital room, his steady breathing remained the only light to chase away our nightmare. I vowed then this story would not end here. Emma needed to be rescued from her maze of delusion, and my family, shattered though we were, would fight to hold on to every fragment of reality before it all slipped away. Or the ghost of Astrid, unmasked, exposing the toxic, shifting network. About 2 days after the incident, Mom and my sister were still camped out by Jake's bedside, and I returned to a house that felt like a war zone. While I was cleaning Emma's room, I noticed her laptop sitting on the desk screen, glowing in sleep mode, and opened a Discord. I scrolled through the channel list, Astrid shifts, portal seekers, beyond reality. My chest tightened when I saw mentoring sessions with hundreds of unread messages. Most offered tips on boosting your vibration custom crystal blends, meditative herb mixtures. A PDF file titled "Breathing for Dimensional Breakthrough" made my skin crawl. Next, I opened a direct message thread between Emma and an account named Astrid, whose avatar was a long-haired woman framed by candlelight. Astrid had written, "Are you ready for your first levitation trial? Prepare your mind and ice water." Emma replied, "I feel stronger every day. I believe I can lead others through the shift too." I clicked through other chat rooms and found short clips Emma had recorded her sitting inside a crystal circle, eyes closed, lips moving with silent chants. Each caption boasted stats like +10% portal energy or 48-hour wake to boost out of body. But the darkest discovery was a channel called Underwater Trials, where Astrid posted guided videos on forced breath holds, followed by footage of a crying girl gasping, "I'm scared. I can't." The clip cut to a swirl of bubbles. Below it, dozens of glowing star emojis and comments like, "Brave girl," and "Keep pushing." Teen accounts shared their near-drowning experiences with pictures of raw hands gripping the tub's edge. One user, Chloe, admitted she'd almost died on her first attempt, and Astrid had cheered her on. "Only by touching the brink of death can you know you're alive." I sat there shaking, jotting it all down. This wasn't a harmless game. It was a brutal brainwashing network, preying on lonely teens desperate to belong. Astrid wasn't just a coach, she was the mastermind sowing deadly faith. Just then my sister walked in. She saw my pale face over the laptop. We exchanged a look, closed our eyes in shared horror, and knew to save Emma, we had to sever every tie to Astrid and her followers. And to stop this evil from spreading, our family would have to confront that unseen specter, a demon, cloaked in chance, quietly destroying young souls. Chapter 7. Coordinated rescue family, friends, and community. Joined forces. When I saw all of Astrid's toxic messages and videos, an uncontrollable anger welled up inside me. I called Marcus, my cousin's classmate, who told me that his sister Luna had nearly tried the underwater trial, following Astrid's guidance. His voice trembled as he said, "They lure kids by telling them they must sacrifice to find happiness." We met at the cafe near our house and shared everything we'd discovered. Marcus showed me Luna's journal, where she recorded every shift session and every breath hold plan. I printed dozens of screenshots from Discord alongside Emma's bath immersion videos. We immediately decided to hand all the evidence to the police. Meanwhile, my mother organized a Facebook group called Parents Anchoring Reality, sharing warnings and materials about the manipulative rituals. She posted links to news articles on self-harm risks and the hotline for mental health support. Within a day, more than 20 parents joined, recounting how their children suffered sleepless nights, stopped eating, and insisted they needed to shift to another world. My sister contacted Emma's homeroom teacher and the school administration. They were shocked to learn Emma wasn't the only case another student had missed classes for extended shifts and claimed time moves faster in the other world. The principal invited a psychologist to speak with students about spotting fraudulent shifting claims and to identify vulnerable teens for early intervention. Our family also helped organize a community meeting at the small church down the road. Over 40 parents and teens gathered as we presented the evidence videos of Emma forcing Jake underwater Chloe's ice bath clip, Astrid's direct messages. Children's eyes widened in fear, and soft sobs echoed as they realized they too had been on Astrid's list. Police officers returned for a second round of statements and vowed to serve a summons if they could track down Astrid. In parallel, Mom reached out to local mental health organizations and invited experts to explain online grooming, how predators exploit lonely teens to lure them into a hall of illusions. Marcus and I created a support chat called Reality Anchors, where teens who'd been approached by Astrid could share their stories and receive immediate psychological assistance. Luna Chloe and several others joined, recounting the pressure they faced to prove they were strong enough by holding their breath underwater. Now they breathed easier, knowing they weren't alone. Over the following nights, parents and teens met online brainstorming ways to help newcomers. We printed warning flyers and distributed them to every school, along with emergency hotline numbers. I wrote a blog post detailing our family's ordeal, urging students and parents to stay vigilant against online teachers disguised as mental health guides. Slowly, results emerged. Some teens voluntarily deleted Discord and TikTok, seeking professional counseling instead. The school reported a drop in absences due to shifting. Parents no longer sat silently while their children stared at screens. They began asking, "Are you okay today?" Standing before the group, I witnessed the power of community unity, families, friends, and strangers working together. Through these gatherings, I became convinced that only by connecting and caring for one another could we dispel the most dangerous illusions. Even Emma, still in the hospital, will soon feel the warmth of genuine love beyond that curtain of false magic. Chapter 8. Rebirth and Lessons. The final days in the psychiatric ward are images I'll never shake. Emma lying by the window, pale light washing over her eyes clouded with sorrow. She breathed slowly, never mentioning Astrid or the portal again, as if those illusions had shattered and returned her to reality. Every afternoon, our family gathered by her bedside. Jake would bring his stuffed rabbit and place it on her blanket. I held her hand and told her about the small changes at home. Mom had packed away the crystal lights in Emma's room, now displayed Jake's drawings and book symbols more real than any enchanted gateway. She gave a faint smile, and for the first time I heard her true voice. 2 weeks later, Emma was released for outpatient treatment. Each morning she joined group therapy where former shifters worked through the opposite exercises, sketching real memories and talking openly about loneliness and pressure. My mother and I waited in the back, comforting her, whenever tears fell. Jake's recovery was different. He was still afraid of water. Every time he approached the tub, his lips would pale and his heart race. Dad and I enrolled him in swimming lessons with a specialist therapist. Each lap was a confrontation with his fear, but I felt proud as he forced a brave smile each time he completed a circuit. Our community of frightened families became our support network. Reality anchors organized a sharing session at the city library. No one hid their fear anymore. Teens openly recounted their ordeals, and parents exchanged tips for spotting manipulation. Some still loved Harry Potter, but they'd learned the greatest magic comes from connection, not escaping reality. As for Astrid, we learned she was in long-term treatment. She mailed an apology letter to our family hands, shaking with regret. Emma read it and slowly nodded. Maybe everyone needs a portal, but it can't be born of violence. I gazed out the window, the warm afternoon sun stretching across the yard. Our lives still bore scars, but our family had learned the most important lesson: no fantasy world can truly heal us. It's love, understanding, and the courage to face reality that truly shifts us into the lives we deserve. When the shifting illusion shattered, we realized escaping reality was never the answer. Illusions are just masks hiding our pain, and without genuine care and love, anyone can be lured into that maze. Emma and Jake are now relearning how to trust in life, a life that sometimes holds sorrow, but also laughter and hope. Thank you for listening to my family's story. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next True Reddit Reads. Share your thoughts. Below, have you ever heard of shifting or experienced something similar? I'd love to read your story. See you in the upcoming episodes where truth is told in the voices of those who once stayed silent.